What's going on, everybody? It is Cam here with Easy Work Acres, and today we're going to be discussing 3 ways that you can use eggshells in your garden. Now, before we get into why you want to add eggshells into your garden, there's one thing you want to do first, and that is bake them. Baking them is going to make them a lot easier to work with when adding them into your garden. So set your oven to 400 degrees, throw them on a cooking sheet, and throw them in there for 10 minutes, and they'll be ready to rock for your garden bed. Shake them and bake them. It is toasting. So while those eggshells are finishing up baking, let's get into the reasons why you would even want to add eggshells to your garden in the first place. Now, the number one reason being is because of the calcium content. There is a 96% calcium of an eggshell. So what I mean by that is an eggshell is 96% calcium carbonate. That's what it's made of. So by adding that into the soil, you are adding in an essential nutrient for plant growth. Plants continually deplete the calcium within soil as they grow throughout their whole growth cycle. So continually adding in calcium is only going to be helpful to the plant's growth. Now, aside from the nutrient side of things with the soil, is that it also helps level out pH balance. So if you have an extremely acidic soil and you need to bring that pH up to a more neutral level for whatever plant you may be growing within your garden bed or your garden pots or whatever you're growing in, adding in those eggshells are going to help bring a little bit more pH balance to the soil for whatever plant you have growing in that soil. And they are done. Woo-hoo! Look at them burnt up buddies right there. Now, the reason you want to bake these eggshells is because of that right there, that whole burnt upness right there. That is the membrane on the inside of the eggshell. Basically, you have baked these because that's going to dry that all the way out, and it's going to make these eggshells much more brittle and a whole lot easier for you to be able to crush up into smaller pieces and make it better for adding to your garden. Alrighty, so now all I got is these eggshells in a bowl. Now, some people have like a fancy like stone bowl with like a stone crusher thing. I got a wooden spoon, and that's what we're gonna use. So basically with this bowl, I'm just going to crush it into smaller pieces, but not super fine. So I'm not totally pulverizing these things. I'm just breaking them up into somewhat smaller sizes. Alrighty, so method number 1 as to how you can add eggshell to your garden. And no, this is not a plant, this is a pipe cleaner. It's the middle of winter. We don't have any plants growing right now, but when we're going into gardening season, you're gonna put eggshells down. Now, you can notice that I have these eggshells, they're not super small, and I have them spread around my plant right here. Now, if you look closely, is that they are very thin and they have these, well, it's not focusing, but they are very thin and sharp edges. Now, these sharp edges work as a great barrier against snails and slugs. So if that is something that you have trouble with in your garden on a specific plant that you know snails or slugs just tear up year after year, these eggshells, especially if you put them all surrounding really, really well around the plant, those sharp edges will work as a barrier against them to where they will get cut and they're like, maybe not. And they'll stay off your garden. Now, what this will not work against is things like caterpillars, hornworms, and things like that. They'll just crawl right on over them like it's no big deal. But the soft tissue ones like snails and slugs will absolutely hate these eggshells being around your plant. And while it's working as a barrier against those snails and slugs, it will also continue to break down and add calcium to your soil over time. So that is one way you can add eggshells to your garden. So another way you can add eggshells to your garden, and we're still talking about the larger, well, can't see it, but larger pieces here, like in the bottom of your pots. So if you are somebody that grows in a pot, they can go on the bottom as a great source of drainage, similar to when you add rocks. The only difference is again, this is going to break down over time and add calcium to the soil. So when you pour your water into your pot, it goes through the eggshell so that you do not overwater your pots. So that water isn't gonna just sit in there and just soak up in the soil and get sopping wet, but it'll continue draining off to where the soil is just as wet as it needs to be, and the rest will continue going out of the holes in your pots because you left a good broken up layer that isn't clogging the holes in the pot. And moving on to our third and last one, which is pulverizing it into little tiny pieces. Now, the reason for doing that is because you can mix it directly into the soil, like tilling it in, or just mixing it in with your raised bed or your pots or in your in-ground bed if you're tilling it in. But basically, it's gonna break down a lot faster at that point, and it's more readily available for the plants, as well as it can still be used as drainage. Now, some people do pulverize it down all the way down to like a fine powder, and that's where like those special bowls for grinding it down can come in, or using using something like a coffee grinder. The finer you can get it, the more easily and more readily available that the calcium in the eggshell is to the plants. So breaking it down finely is going to make it almost instantly available versus putting it on top or bottom of your garden. So that brings us to the end of our amazing video about eggshells and why they are great for your garden. So if you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to keep sharing stuff like this. If you have other ways that you think that eggshells can be a benefit to your garden, please leave them in the comments. We would love to hear them. And that is all I got for you today. See you all in the next video.